Hello, everyone, and many thanks for joining today's stream. It's a Friday, so happy Friday, everybody. Hopefully, you will have a great day and a wonderful upcoming weekend. Today is 28th of November, of course, and now it's 11 o'clock in the morning, 6 past 11. And as always, I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments that Russian media is focused on, and hopefully you will like the news segment. And in that case, please click that like button, leave some commentary just about anything, and share video with your friends. This might help to deal with the shadow ban and extremely aggressive algorithm, and will help. This will help to reach wider audience potentially, and hopefully sound is good, dear friends. Can you tell me in the chat if sound is okay? Because a few minutes before I launched the stream, microphone disassembled in my hands while I was trying to plug in. I did reassemble the mic, at least partially. Some fragments still around here, and I'm not quite sure if sound is good. So can you tell me, dear friends, in the chat if sound is okay? Oh, sound is good. Thank you very much, Michael. And Danny, thank you, dear friends. So I was worried about it. For God's sake, man, I don't really in a position now to spend like, I don't know, man, how much mic's worth. Cheapest was like $100, $200, but I'll try to deal with this one, or I will find somewhere all the mic that I was using. Shit happens, isn't it? And that's why I'm a bit late to start this live stream. But anyways, if sound is good, let's go through some news. Just in case, dear friends, some new members are watching their updater, I will just say that, well, if they will like, or if anyone likes my work and wants to support, well, very much welcome. This project exists as long as I have community support. So if anyone wants to participate in that, well, under this video in description box, there are links to PayPal, Boosty, to Patreon, by the way. Hopefully more members will subscribe to Patreon page of mine or page on Boosty. And during the stream itself, of course, there is a round feature or super chat feature on the Rumble that can be used to not just highlight certain topic or question that one might have, but also donate to the project. That's been said, let's go through some news, and hopefully there gonna be no technical issues no more. It's crazy, man. It's crazy what this. You have to update equipment regularly. By the way, it is what it is. You are using and abusing equipment 24/7, so you have to always have budget to deal with whatever technical stuff comes up. But anyways, that's a whole different story. Let's go through some. News, and I will start with this report from RIA Novosti, which is based on latest update from Russian Defense Ministry that air defense systems on duty intercepted 136 drones last night that were launched by Kyiv regime with assistance of NATO. I can give you some details on that. So Russian militaries intercepted 46 drones in Rostov region, 30 drones in Saratov region, 20 drones in Crimea, 12 drones over the Black Sea. Focus of assault is once again mostly southern regions of Russia. In addition to that, Russian militaries destroyed 6 drones in the Bryansk region, 5 in the Volgograd region, 2 each in Voronezh and the Moscow regions. And over the Sea of Azov, as well as 1 each in the Kursk and Kaluga regions. In response to attack by the Ukrainian armed forces, Russian troops are striking exclusively at the military facilities and Ukrainian military industrial complex enterprises with high precision air, sea, and land-based weapons, as well as drones, Russian Defense Ministry stated. So, unfortunately, yet again, quite a vast geography of these attempts of NATO and NATO proxy regime to strike deep into Russian territory, and this will continue until Kyiv regime exists whatsoever. This Western-controlled terrorist regime is in existence. Thanks to Russian air defense systems, hundreds and potentially thousands of Russian citizens are saved literally day-to-day basis. Let's continue with some other news. And TASS news agency is reporting, also based on Russian Defense Ministry's update, that Russian militaries liberated Vasyukovka settlement in a DPR. Let me show you on the map, dear friends, where Vasyukovka settlement is located, and then I will give you some short summary on the developments on the battlefield. So this is Vasyukovka settlement on the southern-western side of Seversk. And well, when it comes to overall situation on the battlefield, there was no reports about some major developments in the Kherson direction. About months ago, there was some activization of the Russian operations in Kherson direction. You know, there were a lot of reports about Russian troops establishing control over their Quarantine Island and also on Karabel Island. But after that, no updates, at least on regular basis. I assume Quarantine Island that you see right now on your screen is under Russian control, and Russian troops probably continue operations to establish full control over the Karabel district, which is isolated from main body of the Kherson, while being on an island, basically massive, quite massive island. As I said, no reports about some major developments in Kherson direction. I think Russian troops still are focused on those islands. In Zaporozhye direction, we have significant developments. As I reported earlier, Russian troops are getting closer and closer to Orekhov settlement. Reports are coming in about further advance of Russian troops in Novodanilovka settlement, which is located on the southeastern part of Orekhov. We should not be surprised if maybe not before end of this week, but before end of next week, Novodanilovka will be completely under Russian control. And at that point, we might argue that battle for Orekhov have begun. This is central part of Zaporozhye direction. When it comes to eastern part, of course, main stronghold of Kiev regime is Gulyai Pole, and unfortunately, this map that I am using is not really up to date. Otherwise, whole this area around Zelyony Gai and Vysoka would be colored at least in a gray zone or under full Russian control, because many sources are reporting that Kiev regime's troops run away basically from Vysoka and Zelyony Gai, and according to even some propaganda outlets from the Kiev regime, due to unauthorized retreat of Kiev regime's forces from these settlements to avoid encirclement, basically, Russian troops follow them inside the city of Gulyai Pole itself, right? And that's why, allegedly, that's what the Kiev regime is claiming. That's why Russian troops manage this rapidly enter the Gulyai Pole southeastern parts. So Russian troops are present, by the way, in Gulyai Pole itself now, and seems like local garnisons are not really that keen to die for geopolitical agenda of the Western elites or for Kiev regime. That's an explanation that I can come up due to this unauthorized withdrawal of the Kiev regime's forces from Zelyony Gai, Vysoka, and also from southern and eastern parts of Gulyai Pole. Some military experts even are predicting that liberation of Gulyai Pole will not take too long, maybe a week or two max. Could be the case. Hard to tell, obviously, but nevertheless, Kiev regime probably still has some reserves. They can accelerate forceful mobilization and throw into this direction another 10, 20,000 forcefully mobilized people, and of course that will force Russian militaries to take more cautious approach and to conduct operations while taking time to make sure that casualty numbers on Russian side is minimized. But some military experts are predicting that Gulyai Pole will be liberated much more rapidly than some might think. When it comes to Dnipropetrovsk directions, well, what Russian troops are basically finalizing clearing operations in recently liberated settlements and preparing ground for sectoral scale offensive operations. Probably another week or two, and we will see further advances, acceleration of the Russian operations in the Dnipropetrovsk direction. And I have said numerous times before that once order comes from General Staff to start sectoral scale offensive operation in the Dnipropetrovsk region, Russian troops going to advance very rapidly, because compared to, let's say, DPR, because yet again, Kiev regime, this Western-backed Kiev regime, was fortifying with assistance of NATO, DPR, LPR, Zaporozhye region for many years, since the bloody coup d'etat that West orchestrated in 2014 in Kiev, right? But Dnipropetrovsk is different. There are not that many fortifications, not that many strongholds that Kiev regime can use, and also Dnipropetrovsk region is not as urbanized as it is the case in DPR, for example. Dnipropetrovsk region is mainly steppe area, and I think Russian troops will advance towards Dnipropetrovsk city very fast once order comes. When it comes to DPR, well, of course, Pokrovsk-Mirnograd direction still makes headlines. Some reports about some major developments in this area. Clearing operation is underway, basically, in both cities that are completely encircled. I believe yesterday Russian President Vladimir Putin also stated that Krasnoarmeysk and Dimitrov, that's Russian names for Pokrovsk and Mirnograd, are under complete encirclement. And in Pokrovsk, clearing operation is being finalized. It's the final stages of the clearing operation. In Mirnograd, there is a lot to do still, because according to some reports, 2,000 to 3,000 troops of Kiev regime are encircled in Mirnograd, and obviously it will take some time to either pursue Kiev regime's encircled troops, at least some of them, to lay down arms and surrender, or otherwise to basically conduct a clearing operation and neutralize those units. So therefore, operations in Mirnograd may continue for another, I don't know, several weeks maybe. Why should Russian troops hurry? Both cities are encircled. Russian troops are advancing further now of Pokrovsk, Mirnograd. Initiative is in Russian hands, and therefore there is no need absolutely to rush the developments and risk the lives of the Russian military personnel. When it comes to breakthrough area, by the way, on the northern side of Pokrovsk, Mirnograd, Kiev regime deployed in this direction towards the end of summer. Whatever reserves they had at this point, they were attacking this breakthrough area to basically avoid complete encirclement of Pokrovsk and Mirnograd. They failed, as I predicted, by the way. I said from the beginning that no one should expect that Kiev regime's forces will manage to achieve anything. No, they're not going to deblockade Pokrovsk, Mirnograd, and they did not, right? And now, I guess whatever forces Kiev regime deployed in this direction are completely run out of steam, and it's a Russian turn again to go on offensive, and that's exactly what is happening. Reports are coming in that Russian troops finalizing clearing operation in Shakhovo. According to some military experts, Shakhovo is already under full Russian control. I think still clearing operation is underway, and battles continue, because yesterday, for example, I saw a video on internet when on this part of Shakhovo, one Russian military personnel, I don't know why this Russian soldier was alone in this area, in that particular area, but there was one Russian military personnel, and he orchestrated an ambush for Kiev regime's DRG, and single-handedly eliminated the entire unit of the Kiev regime. I just saw a video, by the way. It's like a freaking movie. Although difference is that in this particular case, people actually fighting, each other, actually shooting at each other. And that Russian military was, I don't know, maybe he's a Terminator or something. He neutralized the entire unit of Kiev regime in this area. So therefore, I assume there are some more units of the Kiev regime in and around Shakhova. At the same time, and clearing operation will take another several days possibly, but same time we are receiving reports that Russian troops are now advancing also towards Sofievka and Taretskaya settlements from southern and their eastern flanks. And I guess it is a possibility that before end of next week all this area will be under full Russian control. When it comes to Konstantinovka direction, main updates are coming from the southern side of Konstantinovka. As I predicted, by the way, Russian troops are focused more on liberation of neutralization of Kiev regime strongholds on the southern side and on offensive operations towards the villages, settlements that are around Konstantinovka. Stepanovka, for example, Dolgaya Balka, Raskoshnaya, Berestok, and once Russian troops will establish control over these settlements and finalize drilling operation on the northern bank of Klibambik reservoir, we should expect potentially at that point some major offensive inside the Konstantinovka city itself. Although Russian DRGs, Russian units already are operating in Konstantinovka, already are in control of a number of districts on the eastern flank of the city. And as I said a few times before, Russian troops, at least DRGs, are operating even in the central parts of this town. As I already said, in Seversk direction, also Donetsk People's Republic, Russian troops liberated the Vasyukovka settlement, and probably Russian militaries will continue to advance westward. And potentially, we might see massive cauldron being created in most northern eastern part of DPR, when Kiev regime's forces will be encircled, not just in Seversk and Liman, but in all the settlements around. There is a probability that we're gonna see massive encirclement in this area that I'm pointing with the mouse right now. Let's see. Also, Russian troops are advancing from northwestern side of Liman, from this area, and of course, Russian troops are advancing in between Seversk and Liman. Russian militaries are in both these cities, by the way. Russian militaries have established their presence in both Seversk and Liman, which is also important development to keep in mind. What else? Yes, number of sources, dear friends, reported that Russian militaries established full control over the Volchansk. Yesterday, I reported that according to statements of Andrei Marochko, Russian military expert, 90% of the settlement was under full Russian control, and clearing operation was underway in remaining 10% of the village. And late evening yesterday, I saw several reports on big Telegram channels in the Russian segment that Russian troops actually established full control over the Volchansk. Defense Ministry did not yet confirm this information, so let's take this report with a pinch of salt, let's say, right? But potentially before end of this week, we will receive confirmation from Defense Ministry that Volchansk is under full Russian control. So as you can, and then the Russian troops advancing also in Kupiansk area, by the way. Kupiansk city is under full Russian control, but significant number of Kiev regime's forces are encircled on the left bank of Oskol River. Reports are that some 1,500 to 2,000, according to some reports, up to 3,000 troops of Kiev regime might be encircled on the left bank of Oskol River, on outside of Kupiansk, by the way. Well, this is big, isn't it? This is big, and of course, once again, due to a huge number of hostile forces, Russian troops take whatever time is necessary to neutralize this grouping of forces of enemy step by step. And also, I'm quite sure Russian militaries will offer opportunity to enemy forces to lay down arms and surrender. And there is numerous videos are circulating on the internet when Russian troops, through artillery shells that are packed with leaflets with the call to surrender and explanation of their battle situation in this area or other areas. Also, drones are used that are, dropping the leaflets, and Russian militaries are giving the opportunity to enemy forces to surrender, because we should keep in mind, dear friends, this is a civil war. That's how many of us see this confrontation. This is a civil war that Western elites managed to provoke. They did manage to brainwash a significant number of Russians, basically, that were living in this so-called Ukraine, creation of the Bolsheviks, right? And unfortunately, it's a civil war. It's a civil war, and we are fighting our brothers and sisters, our brainwashed brothers and sisters, and therefore, I can understand when approach towards the Nazi formations of the Q regime is different and should be different. Nazi organizations of the Q regime, Nazi formations, are designated as a terrorist organization, so obviously approach is different. Terrorist organizations, terrorists are not covered by Geneva Convention, but Russian troops, of course, are keeping in mind that thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people on the Kyiv-controlled territory were forcefully mobilized and sent to the battlefield, and we are obligated to give them opportunity to lay down arms and surrender, even if they've been brainwashed, right? And even if they think no longer think about us as to be their brothers and sisters, but nevertheless, if they are not completely brain dead, if they are not really Nazified in absolute terms, there is a chance to resocialize them, right, into Russian world, and that's what we have to do. So therefore, obviously, it does make all the sense that Russian militaries will take whatever time is necessary, and will always give opportunity to Kiev regime's forces to lay down arms and surrender. Ordinary units, by the way. This not goes for Nazi formations. Nazi formations should be eliminated without mercy on the spot. My personal opinion, although Russian militaries might take them as a prisoner of war too. It's up to individuals on the battlefield, obviously. Okay, that's been said. This is it for a short summary of the developments on the battlefield. Obviously, initiative is in Russian hands, and in no circumstances Kyiv regime and their NATO backers will be able to turn the tide in any direction whatsoever. Let's continue with some other news, dear friends. And as you know, recently Trump's team come up with some 28-point peace plan that was allegedly discussed with the Kyiv regime with the Kyiv regime's European backers in Geneva recently, also in Kyiv. And we also received reports that Trump issued a kind of ultimatum to Zelensky that Kyiv regime have to agree on this plan on the escalation by 27th of November. Today is 28th, and Kyiv regime disagree on the Trump's demand, while being tremendously emboldened by the globalists, right? First of all, by British political class, British intelligence, British leadership, let's say, which is the main driving force in a globalist among the globalists, obviously. And Kyiv regime not just ignored Trump's demand, but they are openly saying that they would not give up territory for peace. And according to Trump's 28-point plan, Kyiv regime's forces should be withdrawn from parts of DPR, at least, that not yet been liberated by Russian forces. And they are rejecting this idea. Not just that, but her head of so-called parliament in Ukraine, by the way, a few days ago, stated that this war will end when Kyiv regime will establish control over the Crimea. So you tell me level of I don't know, inadequacy of these people, man, and how much they've been involved. What European elites are telling them that they are acting this way. I don't know. I mean, there is a very few quasi regimes or very few quasi states or the regimes worldwide that can reject this disrespectfully Washington's demands, man. Right? And Kiev regime is doing this. So they've been emboldened. The Europeans, globalists are giving them some sort of security guarantees, I guess, or something. I don't know. Whatever promises they've been given, but they are rejecting Trump's ideas. Okay, by the way, and on this topic, Russian president, while being with visit in Kyrgyzstan, by the way, for the past 3 days, and participating in CSTO summit, conducted a press conference for journalists. That happened till yesterday late evening, by the way, and he spoke about numerous topics, including on a topic of de-escalation in the zone of special military operation. And let me give you what Russian president said. So RT is reporting that Putin restates conditions for the ending of the hostility with Ukraine. Ceasefire could be declared only if Ukraine withdraws its troops from the parts of Russian territory it claims as its own. Russian President Vladimir Putin has stated, and this is important statement, obviously, because in Trump's 28-point plan, there was a mentioning of Donbass only. There was no mentioning of Zaporozhye and Kherson region. And I pointed out straight away, isn't it, that Moscow would never agree on that. Impossible that anybody here in Russia would agree even 1 square centimeter of Russian land to be given to somebody or anybody or whatever, right? We cannot do this. And even Russian constitution and law, by the way, legislation prohibits to advocate for secession of any territories whatsoever. So I said straight away, there's no way this point will be acceptable by Moscow, acceptable for Moscow. But I mean, Kiev regime straight away rejected Trump's plan anyways, right? And now, yesterday, Russian president went in to clarify where Russian stand is. And as it was expected, and as I spoke about it numerous times, Russian president said that Kiev regime's forces have to withdraw from all their territories that are Russian. And that means not just DPR. I remind you that LPR, by the way, Lugansk People's Republic, is already liberated, right? And there are some parts of DPR that needs to be liberated, some parts of Kherson region, and some parts of Zaporozhye region. And yes, that's where Moscow stands. And there are no changes in the Russian position. I remind you that it was 2024, isn't it, when Russian president visited foreign ministry and had a conversation with the leadership of a foreign ministry. And then he went in quite a detailed discussion in regards to roadmap towards the peace. And Putin already then, and even before that, stated that, Russian troops might stop conducting operations on the ground if Kiev regime will withdraw its forces from Russian territory, from Kherson, Zaporozhye, DPR. And at that point, in 2024, some small parts of LPR were still controlled by Kiev regime. And they should withdraw from there too, if they would agree, but they did not, right? They even now rejecting this idea. But for whatever reason, when Trump's 28-point peace plan was published, Western propaganda, Western elites and Western media that controlled by them went to push this false narrative that this Trump's 28 peace plan is somehow Russia's wish list, which is nonsense, right? And I went to all 28 points and commented on them, and I make it clear from the beginning that this is nonsense, right? Moscow will never take this deal. Much work is needed to actually reach some acceptable conditions there. But nevertheless, these rumors and these false narratives were still pushed, by the way, that this is a Russia's plan. This is a Russia's plan. Well, you know what? Russian president himself said now that no, man, we are not interested in that, right? We can use this 28-point plan to start talk about this issue, right? As a basis to start negotiations. But it does not mean that we are accepting this 28 point. No, man. And the Russian president very clearly said ceasefire could be declared only if Ukraine withdraws its troops from the parts of Russian territory it claims as its own. Period. There is nothing to discuss there. President touched upon the matter during the press conference in Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan. On Thursday, Putin visited the Kyrgyz capital for a summit of the Collective Security Treaty Organization, a regional alliance bringing together a handful of post-Soviet nations. I remind you, dear friends, that members of CSTO are Belarus, Russia, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Kazakhstan. Armenia used to be part of it, but nowadays formally probably still is, but no longer participates in any works of CSTO because Armenia is no longer independent state, by the way, not even pretending. Armenia is a colony of the West. At this point, the West successfully managed to implement their proxies into government there, led by Pashinyan, and that's that, right? Armenia is no longer operates based on Armenia's national interests. Armenia will do whatever they are told to do by Washington, Paris, and others. But anyways, let's continue with this reporter. Putin reiterated Moscow's long-standing position that an unconditional ceasefire with Ukraine is out of the question. We are still receiving calls for a cessation of hostilities there, and elsewhere. Ukrainian troops will withdraw from their territories they occupy. Ukrainian troops will withdraw from the territories they occupy, and then their hostilities will cease. If they don't withdraw, we'll achieve this through military means, the president stated without explicitly naming the territories in question. But by the way, Russian territories are Russian territories, right? There is nothing to discuss there. It's Kherson region, Zaporozhye region, of course, and DPR, period. Moscow has ruled out freezing the conflict and entering unconditional ceasefire, arguing that this would merely allow Ukraine and its Western backers to win time and replenish Kiev's battered military with both personnel and weaponry. At the same time, Russia has repeatedly stated its readiness to resolve their hostilities through diplomacy, which is factually accurate statement, of course. And Russian president went to comment on a number of other issues. Kommersant is giving us some key points from his statements, and let me share with you this report also. So Russian President Vladimir Putin spoke at the press conference in Bishkek, where he was on a 2-day visit, 3-day visit actually, but nevertheless. He answered the journalists' questions about the drafting of a peace plan for Ukraine, contact with Ukraine, the American delegation visit to Moscow, situation in a war zone, and the possibility of Russia's return to the G7. Kommersant summarized Putin's key statements. And so let's go through the statements. There were no draft peace treaty for Ukraine. There was a set of issues for a discussion, Russian president said, about this 28-point plan. And that's why Moscow said from the beginning that, well, we can use this for a basis to start conversation, right? And let's do it. Moscow is open for it. An American delegation is scheduled to arrive in Moscow next week. Trump will determine who will be in attendance. And of course, in this particular case, Russian president commented on reports that Witkoff and potentially even some brother-in-law of Trump, Kushner, will visit Moscow next week. But by the way, what is happening in the West right now. Globalists, of course, as it was expected, targeted um, Trump's administration, targeted big time. They published through Bloomberg some details of the phone conversation between Witkoff and Ushakov, aides of the presidents, US and Russia, and they began pushing the narrative that Witkoff somehow committed treason or something while working with his Russian counterpart to organize a phone conversation between two presidents, and also to come up with some basis on which talks might begin on a peace topic, right? He did not do nothing wrong, by the way, and I devoted separate live stream exactly to this topic. If you are interested, check out my channels on YouTube and Rumble. But nevertheless, you know what is going on in the West, isn't it? Western elites with their propaganda means brainwashed people, majority of societies in the Western world, so much so that no one is actually asking critical questions no more, right? Almost nobody. And therefore, obviously, this false narrative was not questioned in regards to this latest attack on Trump's administration and his aide, Witkoff. And in my previous updates, I said, by the way, that even though we would like, most likely, most of our audience would like to see America First forces being charged in America, unfortunately, this is not the case. Trump already demonstrated that he is not a person that would stand any principles that America First people sharing. Trump would not stand for anything really under the pressure, and therefore he might actually fire Witkoff, by the way, even today or maybe next week, I don't know. Therefore, Russian president formulated his statement this way. It's up to Trump to determine who will be in attendance, although a few days ago it was clearly reported that Witkoff gonna visit Moscow, but now this is in question, I guess, right? Otherwise, Russian president would say Witkoff is coming. I know about it. Like my aides are working on the matter, right? Anyways, let's continue. Let's see what has happened, by the way. I have a very critical attitude towards Trump, his administration, and so on. But I do have sympathies towards America First people, American patriots, by the way. We can call them America First or whatever, right? American patriots, people that want their government to be focused on interests of their people. That's what I want also for Russia. That's what French people should want for France. That's what everyone should want, right? Our government should be focused on our interests. Period, man. There is nothing controversial to say so in this stuff, isn't it? So therefore, obviously, I have sympathies towards ordinary Americans that are on the same page as I am, right? On this matter, that our governments should work for us and should base their policies on our best interests, right? And therefore, I would love to see America being run by America First people, because I see greater deal of potential in a cooperation between Russia and US, because we are not natural enemies, man. We are not natural enemies. We should not be hostile towards each other. And if one day America will be led by truly American patriots, then I'm quite sure relationships between Russia and US will normalize, man. It will take time, but eventually we will get there. That's my take, right? But when it comes to Trump, even though he was pursued by many as to be representative of America First, he demonstrated that he is not already, and that's why I think he might back down under the pressure of globalists and globalist allies in the US, neocons, for example, and he might fire Witkoff. Might happen, by the way. Anyways, let's go through some other Russia generally agrees that the US list of points agreements. Okay, understandable statements. Following negotiations in Geneva, it was decided to divide the 28 points of their peace plan into four parts. Russian president said recognition of the Russian sovereignty over the Crimea and Donbass is one of their key points in the negotiations with the United States. Russian president said, and even though we need some more details, I think Russian side will obviously demand that Russian regions should be recognized as a Russian, not just de facto but de jure also, because it's a Russian, man. It's a Russian. If any peace agreement are gonna be reached, then obviously whole world have to recognize new Russian regions as Russian regions. Period. That de facto recognition is not good enough, I think. Although it's all about negotiations. Let's see if we will get there to start these negotiations even, right? Russia needs a recognition of its territories by the international community, not by Kiev, said the Russian president. I agree with it, absolutely. The draft plan for Ukraine needs to be translated into diplomatic language. Some points currently sound ridiculous, which is true, by the way. And I pointed this out while I was talking about this 28 plan. Every word of the peace plan for Ukraine needs to be set down and seriously discussed. True, by the way, absolutely. Now we are facing issues, and Russian president was forced to basically went into these details because now not just Russian president but all the other Russian officials and officials all over the world outside of the collective West are facing their situation when Western countries are led by so intellectually low-level people that they are not even capable of preparing documents on a decent level, right? They are preparing documents like if they are talking about some stuff on the street, man, or in a pub, right? Some in general terms and this and that. This is not the way business is done in this regard, man. Every word, every sentence have to be seriously discussed and seriously taken. And unfortunately, I mean, when you take a look at the people that are in charge of the Western world, well, you can realize that those people are unable, by the way. They could not. They literally cannot draft serious document because they are just too freaking stupid, man, and uneducated. That's what it is, man. And the Russian president was forced basically to address this issue. If you're gonna come up with some plans, man, please do it seriously on a serious level, right? And whole world is facing this, man. Not just Russia, but whole world have to deal with this situation, man. After all, the level of degeneration of the Western political class has reached such a level that nowadays U.S. policy is being declared on freaking social media platforms through Trump's posts. Is this not ridiculous? It's a freaking circus, man. What is happening in the West? Anyways, let's continue. United States generally takes Russia's position into account. Well, good if so. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Medinsky and Ushakov are among the Russian negotiators on Ukraine. Ushakov is in contact with the American counterparts, Russian president said. So quite understandable statements there, isn't it? On dialogue with the United States, Russian president went to say, Russia did not expect the new US sanctions against the oil companies as there were no conflict between Moscow and Washington after Alaska. And this is also important statement, by the way. Russian president is pointing out that, you know what, we've been very diplomatic towards the Washington. And unfortunately, Washington choose to escalate further with us, right? And this is bad. There will be some consequences. Russian president may did not went into details, but while pointing out that we did not expect that US will go against us this way also, that means that Moscow is disappointed. And maybe step by step, once everyone in Moscow will realize that any hopes that with this administration of US some agreements can be reached are useless. Once this absolute understanding of this, by the way, that US is run by globalists and Zionists will settle in, at that point probably rhetoric of the Russian officials towards Washington will become a little more tense. It's still diplomatic, by the way, and very polite to nowadays, right? But we are about to see changes in this regard. I think so. Let's see. Dialogue with the United States is not easy, but it proceeds without swearing or spitting. All through each side defends its position and interests. And while saying so, Russian president, of course, mocking European so-called elites that are basically acting as if they are being like infected with rabbi or something. They no longer can talk adequately about it in Europe. I would not say situation is much better in US, but at least seems like at least during the conversation with the Russian counterparts, American leadership representatives are acting more or less adequately, I assume. Lavrov is preparing for a meeting with his American partners. Rumors of his disgrace are nonsense. Rumors of his dispatcher, by the way. Disgrace, this is not the right translation of the Google. Rumors about some issues between Putin and Lavrov. Rumors about Lavrov's dispatcher is a nonsense, Putin said. And well, according to reports that I see in Russian media, in Russian segment of internet, Lavrov on several occasions asked Putin to resign. He is an old man. Many people don't understand that Lavrov is a quite old man. Being a foreign minister of Russia is extremely demanded work, right? Extremely demanded job. And well, do it through, it's a hard, man. It's a hard job, and Lavrov recently was experiencing, according to rumors yet again, some medical issues. He was absent for several days, absent from public appearance, and rumors started, man. Rumors started that there is some issues between him and Putin. For God's sake, man is almost like 80-year-old. And he is constantly somewhere, man, in some parts of the world, extremely active. Don't you think this job takes toll on elderly men? Come on now. They are not Terminators. They are not made from steel, man. They are just human beings, right? But Russian president was asked, and he addressed the issue that these old rumors about Lavrov is a freaking nonsense, and I believe in that, by the way. Because due to age and due to some medical issues, I know that Lavrov in past years several times, according to rumors yet again, asked Putin to resign, but Putin said no, man. No. Anyways, let's continue. Russia will raise the issue of preparations for a nuclear test during the negotiations with the United States. Obviously, very serious topic. Russia cannot find itself in a situation where US conducts nuclear tests and we spend another 6 months preparing. So if US conducts nuclear tests, Russia probably will follow shortly after with its nuclear test. But well, let's hope Trump will be informed well enough. I think Trump made an emotional statement that he did not think much about when he said that US will start nuclear weapons tests again. There was reports earlier that Energy Secretary of US was planning to have a meeting with the plant to explain the situation right? And to test de-escalate the stand to downgrade this topic of necessity of weapons testing, because there is no such necessity, right? Hopefully he succeeded. Hopefully Energy Secretary of US succeeded, and US not going to go ahead with their nuclear weapons test, because it's unnecessary, absolutely unnecessary. With the supercomputers, scientists can conduct these nuclear tests literally several times a day if they want to, right? There is no need to conduct an actual explosion of the nuclear weapon. But let's see. Moscow is clearly warning that if US goes ahead with nuclear weapons tests, we will do the nuclear test also. Russia is ready to discuss issues of strategic stability with the United States, Russian president also said. Okay, on a leak of Ushakov and Witkov conversation, Russian president stated, maybe, like we joke, they were put there to spy, and they eavesdrop. What? I didn't understand this, sir. Maybe they are some kind of fakes, maybe they are real overhead conversations. Actually, eavesdropping is a criminal offense in our country. At least this is prohibited. I guess sharing of classified information, that's what Putin means. The problem is not us, but the struggle between the different opinions in the West and the United States about what to do and to end the conflict. Yes, I will say yes, this is the case. Globalists and their allies in the US have one opinion, and there are clearly some groups in the US that have other opinion, but globalists are much more powerful, seems like, because otherwise Trump would act very differently. But you see, Trump cannot stand for anything, really, right? He cannot withstand the pressure from neocons and globalists, man. Witkov is being attacked in the West by those who want to steal money together with Kiev, Russian president also said. On the contact with Ukraine in the UAE, the Abu Dhabi platform is actively used for contact between Russian and Ukrainian intelligence agencies. They mentioned the contacts even during the most difficult times, Putin said. The meeting between representatives of Russian and Ukrainian intelligence services in Abu Dhabi took place at the initiative of the Ukrainian side. Humanitarian issues were discussed, and FSB representative participated, noting secret took place, noting that this was done in secrecy. Well, understandably so. When security services are meeting, it's they discuss some classified stuff mostly. I guess the appearance of the U.S. representative for Ukraine at the talks in Abu Dhabi was unexpected. Okay, reports are that Kirill Budanov, who is designated as a terrorist by Russia, by the way, asked a U.S. representative Driscoll to participate in these talks in the U.S. And the rumors are now circulating that maybe Budanov is playing some political games and want to gain some support from the U.S. certain forces in the U.S. Could be a case, man. Could be a case. Maybe that's why he asked Driscoll to participate in these talks. Anyways, let's continue. About the situation at the front line, Russian president said the fighting will cease when the Ukrainian armed forces leave their positions in Russian territories. The main problem for the Ukrainian armed forces is the growing gap between the number of recruits and the losses, minus 10,000-15,000 per month, Russian president said, which is a big deal, by the way, obviously. And we are seeing results of this gap on the battlefield. Key regime's defense lines are collapsing, right? Cracking. And in many cases, collapsing all along the front line from Zaporozhye. In Kherson, there are not major developments yet, but from Zaporozhye to Kharkov region, in many occasions, in many areas, Kiev regime's defense lines are cracking and they're quite often collapsing, exactly due to lack of manpower. Russian president also said that positive dynamics are maintained in all areas of the special military operation, and their pace of their offensive is increasing, which is also factual. Desertion in the Ukrainian army is very high, and it's unlikely anything can be done about it. Some Ukrainian armed forces soldiers look like homeless people, which is also true, by the way, when Russian troops take POWs, when Kiev regime units are laying down arms and surrendering. Sometimes interviews with these people are published, and they truly look like they've been abandoned for many, many months. Like they look sad, man. Right? They don't look like fighters. This is true, factual, and probably you have seen those videos, isn't it? Fighting is already underway in Komsomolsk, Krasnoarmeysk, and Dmitrov. Of course, Krasnoarmeysk and Dmitrov is across Mirnograd. So Krasnoarmeysk and Dmitrov are completely surrounded, encircled by Russian forces, and Volchansk is almost entirely in Russian hands, Russian president said. And yes, this is true. I report about situation not just in across Mirnograd or Konstantinovka, but also in Volchansk. And yet again, since late evening yesterday and to this morning, number of sources are already reporting that Russian troops established full control over the Volchansk. Yesterday, by yesterday's time, Russian troops were in control of 90% of the city, and clearing operation was underway in the rest of their territory. So it might be that Russian troops actually during the past 12 hours finalized their offensive in Volchansk and established full operational control over the city. Although there might be some points of resistance of encircled units of the Kiev regime here and there. The Vostok group is advancing rapidly through the north of Zaporozhye region and has already approached Gulyaipole, Russian president said, which is also factual. And I can tell you more, man. Russian troops are inside the Gulyaipole already. Russian troops are inside the Gulyaipole, and even Kiev regime, as a propaganda outlets, are confirming this and complaining that a number of units flee the positions without orders. And that's the way they are explaining this rapid advance of the Russian militaries there. Collapse of their front line is inevitable for Ukraine if the situation in Kupiansk is repeated in other areas, and it will be repeated, by the way. I expect maybe in next several days, maybe before end of this week, but I expect to see mass surrenders of the Kiev regime's forces in Mirnograd. I remind you that in Mirnograd, the France Kiev regime deployed some of the most battle-capable brigades, and I think Russian side will conduct negotiations with them. Russian side will explain the situation, will explain to them that they are fighting their own brothers, man, and sisters, and they are dying for geopolitical agenda of the Western elites and this terrorist regime of Zelensky, because Russia is not a threat for anybody on the Kiev-controlled territory, unless that anybody has committed a crime, right? And hopefully commanders of the encircled units will be persuaded, and they will lay down arms and surrender, and that's gonna have a shocking effect on many units of the Kiev regime. So I expect relatively shortly to see mass surrenders of hundreds, potentially thousands of troops of Kiev regime in Mirnograd. Let's see. About Ukraine's mistake, Russian president went to say that we ultimately want to reach an agreement with Ukraine, but this is currently practically legally impossible Signing documents with the current Ukrainian leadership is pointless. They made a strategic mistake by fearing to hold the presidential election. Russia is also in a state of armed conflict, but we held elections, which is true about it. Just recently, there was local elections, isn't it? Including in regions that are bordering zone of special military operation and are shelled by Kyiv regime's forces on a regular basis. But elections did take place there too, right? Only the Verkhovna Rada, that is parliament there in Ukraine, has the right to extend its powers during the wartime. The Ukrainian president does not, based on Ukraine's constitution. Russian president reiterated basically what he already have stated before. On relations with Europe, Russian president said that Russia is ready to confirm its lack of intention to attack Europe. Russia is ready to discuss European security issues with the West. The Russian government is developing a package of countermeasures in event that Russian assets are confiscated in Europe. Confiscation would constitute theft of someone else's property. The possible confiscation of Russian assets will sharply reduce confidence in the Eurozone, Russian president said. And this is all factual, by the way. This is all true, of course. And it is funny that Russian president time and again has to reiterate that Russia has no plans to attack Europe. Well, why would we attack Europe if not provoked? I mean, can anybody explain? Just because it's not explanation. And that's what Western propaganda does, you know. They say, well, they will attack because, well, they will attack. And that's it, man. Why? Why have we have to attack Europe, man? Don't we have any other business to do? What the hell? But unfortunately, you know what is going on in the West, by the way. They are terrifying. They are terrorizing their own public with this non-existent threat of Russia attacking. And they are doing this because it's Europe, by the way. It's the European elites that are preparing for a war with Russia. They want to attack Russia. They plan to attack Russia because they cannot live with the idea that they failed to achieve strategical defeat of the Russian Federation. And they, European elites, globalists, and so on, they are afraid that they're going to lose relevance on the geopolitical scale if they lost this proxy war because they lack resources. They wanted to destroy Russia, dismantle Russia, colonize Russia for resources, right? That's what their plan was, to get their hands on the resources, and that will give them a chance to stay relevant, to be competitive on the world scale, on the world stage. And they are losing this war now, and they cannot face this reality. And that's why they are preparing European countries for a war. That's what they do, and I will get to this point in a minute, by the way. There is quite a stuff to discuss there, right? But it is at one hand funny and in other hand tragic that Russian president has to explain this simple stuff time and again to the European societies. I guess Russian president, while saying so, is addressing European societies that, guys, we don't see you as enemies. We don't want to see you as enemies. We don't want to attack you. We have no plans for that, right? It's your elites that are hostile towards us, and you know what? Take care of your elites. If you truly want peace, take care of your elites, right? To make sure that they're not going to provoke war, because that's what they do. On returning to the G7 or G8 that Trump recently stated again, Russia did not ask to join the G7, G8. It was invited there. At the time, Russia stopped attending G8 summit even before the Ukraine crisis of 2014. Russia has not yet been officially invited to return to G8. Russia does not understand how to interact with the G7 in the current circumstances. Well, we've arrived. Hello. So what? Are we going to and look at each other? Basically, Russian president said, "What we're going to talk about, right? What is the point? Contacts between Russia and G7 in implementing the US plan for Ukraine are possible," he said. And excuse me, friends. And earlier, by the way, Russian president already said publicly that Russia is not interested in G7, G8. It's a useless organization because it does not represent neither leading economies in this world, right? With exception of US, there are no leading economies in G7. By the way, it's a joke. All the rest is a freaking joke, man, right? G20 is a bit different. But G7, it's a freaking joke, and therefore, what is the point for Russia to be part of this bloc, which represents economies that are in their decline? What is the point? And once Russian delegation, let's say, get there on some summit, what they're gonna talk about? Weather? No, man. Thanks, no. And by the way, I guess that's enough. There were some more statements. It was a big press conference of the Russian president, but I guess I did share quite enough key points of his statements. If you want to go into details, well, on Kommersant, by the way, you can find this particular article about it, and the browser will translate it for you, like I did right now. This is Google translation, by the way. Originally, this article is in Russian, of course. Okay. That's been said, dear friends. Let me check how long is this live stream already. It's 1 hour and 7 minutes. Wow. Wow. Okay. Okay. There is a lot of news, by the way, to discuss. I will just remind you, if I may, that, well, if you like my work, if you like my channels, dear friends, if you like what I do, and want to see this project not just surviving but potentially further developing, then please consider to support me. You can do it through with donations through PayPal or Boosty platforms. The links are under this video in description box and in the pinned comment. You can subscribe to my Patreon page or page on Boosty. Links are also under this video in description box and in the pinned comment. And please do so. It is tremendously important, by the way, our community to double, hopefully at least to double on a Patreon. And unfortunately, our community is not growing there, which makes me sad. But yes, I mean, if you can afford long-term support for my work and my project, please subscribe to my Patreon page and page on or page on Boosty. You can choose your level of support there. By the way, paid subscription starts from $5, and then you can choose your level that you can afford. Same is on Boosty. In Boosty, it's rubles, so therefore start might be on $6 or something monthly, minimum monthly subscription. If you are rich or very rich, you can subscribe for $100 if you want to, right? That would be great. But $5-10 subscribers definitely keeping this project alive. So I'm truly grateful to everybody who supported and continues to support. And during the live stream, you can use super chat feature, by the way, on Rumble, right? And I'm online right now. I'm always streaming if there is no technical issues on my YouTube and Rumble channels. And you can, of course, use super chat feature on Rumble. And I checked right now, by the way, Rumble. And for example, there is a super chat from Scooby. I will make a screenshot now and highlight this super chat. So yes, that's also option, dear friends. And dear friends, if you can, please switch to Rumble. Right now, there is only 20 members of community that are watching this live stream online. 21. If you can, please switch to Rumble. That will on its own be help because my channel is monetized on Rumble, and because you will probably see advertise or two, that will probably help in terms of monetization. Although, of course, when it's just 100, 200 views, it don't really makes difference. But maybe more views will help to reach wider audience on Rumble. And at one point, there will be thousands of views, right, under every video, and that will be helpful for sure. And so, yes, you can become premium subscriber also on Rumble, by the way. And that's been said. Let me continue now with some other news. And well, where I was here, by the way, right? And TASS News Agency is reporting, your friends, that Ukrainian armed forces were suffering around, on average, 1,400 casualties every single day in 2025. According to Russian Ministry of Defense reports, enemy losses in the past 330 days have exceeded 468,000 people. This is killed and wounded, by the way. This is overall casualty numbers. And on average, our daily casualty levels were on 1,400, which is massive, isn't it? Which is tremendous, obviously. Meanwhile, as I already said, dear friends, European elites, globalists, they are terrorizing their own publics, isn't it? With this non-existent threat from Russia, while preparing for a war with Russia under this pretext, right? And allocating all sorts of assets for military purposes while not being challenged by nobody, because terrified public not going to challenge them, right? And we have this report now that I want to share with you, that according to Russian ambassador in Belgium, Denis Gonchar, NATO and EU are preparing for a big war with Russia. They justify these actions with their non-existent Kremlin plans to attack, intimidating their own population, ambassador said. And that's exactly what I'm saying for I don't know how long now, isn't it? If you ask me a couple of years ago, even maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, do I think European elites will dare to attack Russia, to provoke actual direct or open war? I would say probably not. But now, by the way, when we have so many indicators that Western elites, European elites clearly are preparing for a war and are intensifying hostility towards Russia, today I would say that unfortunately, if Western societies would not wake up, if they can, and would not influence their own crazy elites, then in that case, war between Europe, number of European states at least, and Russia, it seems to be inevitable, because Western elites clearly are pushing for a war. And Russian ambassador in Belgium is saying the same, and he has much more information, obviously, than I do, because he has, due to his status, he has access to classified information that we never gonna know. So I think these statements of high-ranking officials do matter, by the way. They are issuing warnings, right? And first of all, I think this statement of Russian ambassador is directed not so much to Russian public, but to European public. To, and this is basically ask, wake up, people. What is wrong with you? Wake up before your freaking elites, your freaking governments gonna launch a war with Russia. When missiles start flying, it's just not too late then, there is very little can be done at that point. But can European societies wake up? I don't. I I, I don't think so. Unfortunately, I don't think they can wake up, man. We have to try. Obviously, we have to try to wake them up. But will they? Are they capable, man? I don't think so. They've been brainwashed for so many freaking years that Russia hate is a natural stuff for many of them, right? Nowadays in Europe, you can say anything about Russians. You can write on whatever social platform or anywhere. You can say anywhere on a TV, by the way. You would like to exterminate all Russians, and well, you've been applauded probably, right? You will receive likes and well done, well said, and stuff like that. That's how indoctrinated in Russia hate Western societies have become, man. You know. And on the topic of Western escalation, we have also another Russian high-ranking official, Grushko, by the way, deputy head of Russian Foreign Ministry, who said that EU is preparing for a military confrontation with Russia, which is true. So the European Union is preparing for direct military confrontation with Russia. This was stated by Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Alexander Grushko, and we have a quote from his statements. The main thrust of the NATO countries, military development policy, and the European Union's subordinate policy is to prepare their economies, infrastructure, logistics, societies, and the military organizations for a direct armed conflict with Russia. The deputy minister said at the meeting of the State Duma Committee on International Affairs, expert council on the topic Russia-EU, the likelihood of a change in the political situation. According to high-ranking diplomat, Russia's relations with the European countries are currently in a profound crisis. Through their demonization of Russia, the idea that such a scenario of military conflict is inevitable is being installed in the public consciousness. If in the West, Grushko said, and well, he's correct. He's correct, by the way, and they would not pass without some official in Europe saying that, well, Russians are coming. Literally, there are no single day without some officials in the West threatening their own publics, their own societies with Russians. That Russians gonna come, and no one is challenging them. No one is asking, yes, but why? Why they are coming? Why? For what exactly? No one is asking questions, man. Especially due to not in MSM, at least. I know there is alternative media platforms, and they are asking the questions, but their influence is very limited to say the least, right? It is what it is, man. And yet again, I would beg, man, Western societies, if I had the opportunity to address all of them, man, I would, beg is a strong word, but to save the millions of lives, man. Okay, I can even beg Western societies to wake up, man, for their own sake, because we don't want war with them, right? But if it comes to war, well, we will decimate them, man. You understand what I mean? We don't want no war with Europe, man. But if it comes to it, well, if you think Ukrainian conflict is hell, then what Europeans gonna experience is gonna be like 1,000 times more in every possible way. And we don't want this to happen, man. I'm telling you, you're not gonna find anybody here in Russia that wants war with Europe. Actual war, man. We don't. But if it comes to it, then well, Okay, we don't want to fight. We are ready to fight. We can fight, and we can die if necessary, man. We are ready for this. We are built this way, man. Right? Our mentality is this way, historically speaking. But we don't want no freaking war, man, with nobody. But if Western societies would not wake up to deter their own freaking elites, man, we're gonna end up in a war. And then gloves are off, right? Then enemy is enemy, man, and you have to make sure that you're gonna have a victory. And that means you're gonna do some stuff, man, right? War is hell, man. War is hell. But seems like Europeans forgot about it, man. Europeans just forgot about how devastating war actually is for everybody. Anyways, I mean, if I had opportunity, I would truly address, man, European people, and I would ask, man, please just analyze the information, learn a little more, save yourselves, for God's sake, man, because your elite's gonna launch a war if you do not challenge them. And once missiles start flying, man, it's just too freaking late to do anything. And as I said, they are preparing, by the way. For example, Mark Rutte stated to terrify their own citizens in the West, that latest Russian missiles can reach every part of NATO territory. And you know what? As I said, these kind of statements now are being made exactly for that purpose, to terrify people in the West. Otherwise, what kind of statement is that? Russian missiles can reach any point on a NATO territory since the late 60s, man. Since 70s. What Rutte is talking about? What is he even talking about? And he went to say that we all are now frontliner countries and that kind of stuff. I can give you even a short video of his statement, by the way, right? A clear, pure demonstration of attempt to terrify their own people. Just listen to this, man.
Not be naive. We are all frontline states now. The latest Russian missiles can reach every part of NATO territory within a very limited time span. And what Iceland is doing in terms of indeed surveillance, air defense, etc., making sure that this country is hosting all the nations organizing this is crucial. But
what can I say, man? There is not a single day in Europe, especially, when people not being terrified by these kind of statements. Russian missiles gonna reach any point. Russians are coming. Russians gonna do this. Russians gonna do that, and they being unchallenged by it. Why no one is asking Rutte, for God's sake, man? Russians have these kind of missiles since late 60s. It was Soviet Union then, but nevertheless, right? And Soviet Union was no longer, well, Russia becomes successor, right? And Russia, from the very first day of independence from the Soviet Union, was in a position to strike any point, anywhere on NATO territory, and chose not to. But yet again, there is no true journalism in the West, brother. There is no true journalism in the West, unfortunately. And the only alternative media is in no position to compete with MSM and their propaganda that Western elites, globalists are pushing on the public non-stop. And for example, now we have this report also from Wall Street Journal. I did mention this topic like a week or two ago, and now Wall Street Journal is reporting on on the matter, that Germany developed the secret plan for a war with Russia. The plan depicts how 800,000 NATO troops would get to their eastern front line through Germany. And we have quotes here. We must relearn what we unlearned. We have to drag people back from the retirement to tell us how we did it back then. German deputy defense minister stated while commenting on this matter. And clearly, by the way, I mean, they are preparing for a war, right? There's too many indicators of that. There are plans for Schengen, so-called Schengen, military Schengen, right? Which will allow NATO, European NATO member states to move around their equipment, manpower, without any barriers, any bureaucratic barriers, right? There is also, for example, this particular plan that Germany wants to implement, that it wants to turn itself into a main or major logistical hub for rapid deployment of some 800,000 troops towards the eastern front against Russia, basically, right? Towards the border of the Russia. There are many other indicators, by the way, what is going on in the Baltics, by the way. Take a look. How much escalation is happening there from NATO side, right? So there are too many indicators that NATO is actually preparing for a war, but they are facing certain obstacles, right? All these remilitarization or industrialization programs that they launched a couple of years ago, first stages of it are going to be finalized by 2028, 2029, 2030, right? And therefore, calculus of the Western elites, globalists, as far as I can tell, is that they somehow have to prolong proxy war against Russia until that date, until 2029, 2030. And then globalists think they're going to be in a position to actually launch a direct war against Russia, open war against Russia, right? By NATO, European NATO member states. And to achieve this goal, to prolong this proxy war against Russia, you have seen perfectly well what they are doing. They are forcing the regime to sacrifice more and more people. They are testing ground a non-stop regime in Georgia to overthrow current government while using their assets there, so that then to use Georgia as a sort of second front. UK already did manage to destroy, basically, almost completely destroy political relationships between Moscow and Baku, or Russia and Azerbaijan. Escalation that we observe between two countries clearly was orchestrated by London, 100%, by the way, and that means globalists are considering as a potential second front not just Georgia but Azerbaijan too. Both are southern republics, and they might drop into this chaos, in this bloody escalation, Armenia as well, because Armenia is controlled by Western elites, right? Also, take a look what is going on in Finland, in Baltic states, right? There are clearly indicators that globalists are considering to throw into war against Russia as a kind of second and third front, not just Southern Caucasus republics, for example, Georgia and Azerbaijan, but also even NATO member states. Finland, for example. They might well sacrifice Finland. They might well sacrifice Baltic Chihuahuas while preparing for a main assault on Russia by main NATO forces, right? And by main, I mean France, UK, Germany, Spain, and Western Europe, basically, right? Sweden, Norway, and so on. But it's not just that. London is actively testing ground to disrupt relationships between Russia and Kazakhstan. London is actively testing ground to disrupt relationships between Russia and Kazakhstan, and I'm quite sure globalists are working on the plans to provoke confrontation between Russia and Kazakhstan also. And I think Russian leadership understands this. I think China understands this, and Kazakhstan leadership understands this too. And hopefully there will be no tensions. But globalists are trying, to somehow prolong this proxy war against Russia until 2029, 2030, when they think they're going to be ready to directly openly enter this war against Russia. And well, on this topic of NATO aggression, we have also this report, by the way, that NATO states considering cyber offensive against Russia. Originally, this report is coming from Politico, so let me give you details on that. NATO's European members are reportedly considering joint offensive cyber operation against Russia. Politico reported on Tuesday, citing 2 senior EU government officials and 3 diplomats. Western governments are assessing cyber and other options in response to alleged hybrid attacks by Moscow, according to their publication. Latvian Foreign Minister Baiba Braze told Politico that NATO must be more proactive on the cyber offensive and better coordinate their intelligence services. And it's not taking that sender, it's not talking that sender in a signal, it's doing, she said. So basically they are openly saying that, well, they are preparing for war, right? Cyber attack, in this particular article, topic of cyber attack being mentioned. And well, I last time mentioned this topic, massive Western cyber attack on Russia, when I was talking about next phase of escalation that NATO globally is going to launch against Russia, isn't it? And this next phase of escalation might happen literally at any time. Maybe globalists are hoping that they can prolong this proxy war without their direct open involvement until 2029, 2030, but they are also observing the developments on the ground, isn't it? And if so, they're probably realizing that Kiev regime not going to last until 2029, 2030. There is a high probability that Kiev regime's Kiev regime's armed forces will reach breaking point in next several months, and maybe even before end of this winter, upcoming winter, by the way, Kiev regime's forces will collapse towards their spring, for example. Maybe. And what global is going to do in that case? Once Kiev regime's forces are collapsed, obviously Russian militaries will conduct their arrow offensive operations that everyone was talking about from the beginning. Where is the arrow offensives? Well, everything has its own time, isn't it? After Plan A of special military operation failed, and Plan A was to quickly force Kiev regime to accept terms of the escalation, and that Plan A failed because of involvement of US and UK, collective West, basically. And after Russian side realized that, well, unfortunately, quick resolution of this situation is not possible, then Russia implemented their attrition campaign, right? Attrition style warfare. And it's a slow process. Attrition takes time, but eventually side that wins attrition has their upper hand to launch our offensive at the point when opposite sides' military capabilities, or economical capabilities, political strength is collapsing, right? Our offensives are launched when, due to attrition campaign, hostile forces have collapsed. And this might happen, by the way, in next 3 to 5 months, possibly, maybe a little more, for sure in 2026, right? And globalists understand this. Globalists and their allies, by the way, neocons in the US and Zionists and whomever works with them, right? They all understand this, and therefore they have no choice but to accelerate hostility against Russia and all the plans that they have in terms of open confrontation with the Russian Federation. First of all, European states, by European states, right? And how they gonna attack Russia? How they gonna enter this war openly? As I said many times before, while describing my understanding of the next phase of escalation, they're gonna launch a decapitation strike on the Russian Federation. They're gonna try to take out Russian political and military leadership for this, and simultaneously they're gonna launch massive long-range strikes deep into Russian territory with all sorts of long-range weapons that they can come up with. And for these purposes, for example, they launch these all sorts of false flag operations all over the Europe on the topic of Russian drones, planes, and stuff to justify deployment of a significant number of their air forces to the Russian border. Formally, these planes, these air force assets were deployed towards the Russian border to deal with some drones and stuff, right? But in reality, NATO, European NATO member states are preparing this first wave of attack, right? They are preparing for first wave of attack on Russia, and they need a lot of planes to launch a lot of missiles, right? So that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna do a simultaneous attempt of decapitation strike on Russia, long-range, massive, unprecedented scale drone and missile strikes deep into Russian territory, simultaneous massive terrorist attacks inside the Russian Federation, while NATO countries and their secret services will use most of their assets, if not all, that they have in Russia to conduct large-scale terrorist attacks, to create chaos and panic whenever they can. And simultaneously, they're going to launch massive cyber attacks also to create chaos. That's what their plans are, by the way, and they are not really good keeping these plans secret. That's what is going on. And dear friends, I don't know what can I do personally to wake up European societies, but if you can do something, do it, because we are due to this inadequate policies of their globalists and globalist control regimes all over the Europe, due to inadequate policies of the Western elites, we are heading towards actual direct military confrontation, West versus Russia, and I don't want this to happen, man. Do you? And if there is any chance to wake up people in the West, in Europe especially, to deter their own crazy elites there in Germany, France, UK, man, do it, man. Do it until too late, because yet again, if globalists succeed, if Western elites succeed launching direct war against Russia, open direct war against Russia, whole hell gonna broke out, man. And trust me, Russian troops were already restrained in their operations against Ukrainian forces and against Kyiv regime, very restrained. And they're gonna be no restraints, none whatsoever, against NATO troops and NATO countries. If NATO will dare to attack Russia, if Western elites will dare to launch war against Russia, open war. So that's what it is, man. I think more talk is necessary about these risks, and I think it will be good if Russian, at least spokesperson of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova, or maybe even Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, if they will devote some special conference to this matter, to these risks, to somehow try and reach out to European societies, right? Because yet again, if globalists, if European elites, if Western elites manage to provoke direct war, direct open war between Europe and Russia, between NATO and Russia, then, well, it's gonna be horrifying, man. If war would not go nuclear, we will decimate our enemies 100%, by the way. If if NATO, European NATO states will launch war, open war against Russia, and if confrontation will not go nuclear, we will decimate, Russia will decimate European NATO member states in a conventional warfare with conventional means. But if confrontation goes nuclear, then whole world will be decimated. If war goes nuclear, if US is involved and then all the other nuclear countries, then that's going to be extinction level event. That's how dangerous the situation is, man. It is what it is. And yeah, friends, a lot of news left, but let me end this news segment on this particular news. And the rest of the news will go in today's second news update on my Patreon and Boosty pages. Maybe some parts of it I will publish on YouTube and Rumble also. And therefore, one more reason, dear friends, why to subscribe to my Patreon and Boosty pages. I have you will support my work on one hand, and also quite often I have second updates or some other extra content on Patreon and Boosty pages of mine. So let me share with you this news, dear friends. Maria Zakharova, official representative of the Russian Foreign Ministry, responded to yet another irresponsible statements of top EU diplomat Kaja Kallas, who stated that in past 100 years, Russia attacked some 19 countries, some of them several times, while none of them attacked Russia, which is, quite something to say, but but because there is no true journalism in the West no more, in MSM, right? And because public mostly have been indoctrinated in total Russia hate, by the way. No one is challenging these crazy statements, these crazy persons that are in charge there in the West, in Europe, in this particular case, which is sad, man. But of course, we are watching, we are monitoring the situation, and when necessary, reacting. And let me give you what Maria Zakharova commented. So Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova commented on EU number one diplomat Kaja Kallas' statement about Russia's attacks, declaring that after such statements, the paramedics needs to be called psychiatrists. I will say. Kallas stated that over the past 100 years, Russia has attacked more than 19 countries, some of them 3 or 4 times. However, she added, none of these countries have attacked Russia. In response to this statement, Zakharova wrote on her Telegram channel, "Call the paramedics. I now understand why journalists at their briefing today asked me to comment on U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio's refusal to meet with her. It's not safe," Zakharova said, while hinting, I guess, that Kaja Kallas is infected with rabies because she's acting like a rabbit creature, right? And let's see this short. Let's see this short video where Kallas is talking about this nonsense that no one attacked Russia in past 100 years.
Russia has attacked more than 19 countries, and some as many as 3 or 4 times. None of these countries has ever attacked Russia. So in any peace agreement, we have to put the focus on how to get concessions from Russian side.
Dear friends, do I have to comment on this nonsense that Kaya has come up with? It is sad, though. It is sad that this kind of totally irresponsible statements have not been challenged in Europe, man. Level of decline, as yet again, level of decline of societies, of journalism, of political class is beyond any imaginary boundaries, man. In the West, especially in Europe, as you can see, this is crazy, man. This is crazy, and the only response on this kind of attacks on Russia by the Western so-called elites is as Maria Zakharova commented, right, with irony or and the dark humor sort, because you cannot comment this kind of stuff seriously, man. It's just insult to the intellect of the world community, right? What Kaya Kallas is saying there, and what many other Western so-called elites are saying on daily basis, right? But Maria Zakharova was, she did good, man. She did responded in a quite strong way, that she now understands why Marco Rubio refused to have a meeting with her. It's not safe, and yes, it is not, man. So, dear friends, you see with whom we are dealing. People like Kaya Kallas and Mark Rutte and Stammer and Macron and all these elements that have nothing to do with the actual interests of the people that they should represent, right? And that's why I'm saying, man, I don't know what we as a community, as a people, man, can do to wake up the Western societies, European societies. But if we can't do anything, we should, man, because these so-called elites in the West gonna provoke war, actually, and it's gonna be, hell on earth, man. As I said, man, we know how to fight. We can fight, we can die fighting for right cause, right? That's how we grow up, man. That's how our parents grew up. That's how their parents grew up, right? That's our mentality. But just because we know how to fight and how to die honorably does not mean that we love to fight, man. We don't love fights, right? We want to avoid fight as much as possible. And you tell me what we can do to wake up people in the West until it's too late, man. I don't know. Dear friends, I will end the news segment on that, and for a minute, let me check if there was any question coming from Boosty. No questions from Boosty. Seems like for now no messages, at least. But there was super chat on Rumble from Scooby. Thank you very much, Scooby, for your support and attention. And super chat, and Scooby commented, "Keep fighting, they're a good fight, Levan." Thank you very much, Scooby, for your kind words, for your support. Thank you, and for your donation. Thank you very much, Scooby. Unfortunately, dear friends, chat was very passive today on Rumble, which is sadder. I will ask every day during the live streams I will ask YouTube community that if it's convenient for you, dear friends, if it's not too inconvenient, other way, to switch to, whenever I'm online, switch to Rumble, right? it helps, man. More chat is more active, then more views on Rumble videos probably will influence algorithm, and my videos will reach bigger audience on Rumble. And there are tens of millions of people, by the way, on Rumble on daily basis, right? It's quite a big platform, not as big as YouTube, obviously, but still, right? And so, dear friends, yet again, thank you all. Thank you all. If you like my work, if you like my channels, if you want to support her, you can do it with donation through PayPal or Boosty. You can subscribe to my Patreon page or page on Boosty, of course, and choose your level of monthly support there. And yes, during the live streams, of course, there is a super chat feature, but today there was a very few people on Rumble, unfortunately, during the live. Many thanks to all of you. Many thanks to all of you. Have a wonderful day, dear friends. Later on, I'm quite sure I will publish second news update on my Patreon and Boosty pages. Walk and talk type of video, most likely. Other than that, yes, I guess this is it for now. Have a wonderful day. Great upcoming weekend. Thank you for attention and for your attention, and take care. Bye.